It is just a huge honor today to be in Melbourne, Australia with Chris Hart. You probably know his little brother Kevin Hart, little shorter and much younger. Australia is a very neat place. This was the place where the CPAP was invented. Who invented the CPAP?
Colin O'Sullivan, yep.
Colin, Collin.
Yep,
O'Sullivan.
Yep.
Sounds like a good Irish lad. Any name that starts with the O apostrophe, it's got to be a good lad. And you're with obstructive sleep apnea.
Correct.
So let me read about it. As Clinical Director of Oventus, Dr. Chris Hart is overseeing the delivery of the O2 Vent TM product range to patients and through clinicians. Graduating from the University of Queensland in 1998 with a Bachelor of Dental Science with honors and a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry, he also studied at Cambridge University and graduated in 1999 with a Master's of Philosophy in Biomedical Science. Prior to establishing Oventus, Chris owned and managed a multi-site national dental practice, training institute, and management consultancy, which he sold to private equity investors. He now works full-time as the Oventus Clinical Director. Chris also acts as an advisor to various bodies within the dental industry, as well as the healthcare sector more broadly on the commercial aspects of healthcare delivery. I learned about this. If you go to Dental Town and you type in, I want everybody to go to Dental Town, and there's this little search bar, and I want you to use that search because that cost me $50,000 out of my own pocket. That Google search thing for your website's $50,000. But if you put in Oventus, there's a very neat thread. It's a they were talking about this, and I looked at that, and I thought, well, heck, I'm lecturing in Melbourne tomorrow. So I thought when I was down here, I wanted to meet the man himself. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
The hotel room. So this is it. This is very interesting, and everybody on Dental Town thinks it's interesting. First of all, tell us about your journey. How did you go from being a dentist to coming up with Oventus?
You
were out drinking one night, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Got blind drunk. Came home sleeping with my mouth open. So look, I'm a severe sleep apneic, severe nasal obstruction. So, and I was working in sleep dentistry anyway, in craniofacial pain. I was treating patients, and I had a surgical revision of the nose, didn't work. Still an obligate mouth breather. So out of desperation, one night I got a couple of saliva ejector tubes and I cut them up, and I bent them around the outside of my teeth, through the hamular notch into the back of my throat, and squirted a bit of impression material in, and that was the first O2 vent. So
how long ago was that?
That was 2012.
So now you said you're severe nasal obstructive.
Yeah, correct.
Now, could that be corrected surgically?
Yep. So I had surgery as a juvenile, didn't work. Went to look at a revision, but when you look at nasal surgery, they look at the bony structure, and so I had no bony issues. It was just chronic inflammation and overgrowth of soft tissue. So then you end up on nasal decongestants, which don't work after a while, and you get rebound, and it's a very difficult problem to fix.
A friend of mine who's a dentist, one of my best dentist friends ever, he's been addicted to Afrin his whole life, and you won't believe this when I tell you this, but he actually went to like an alcohol treatment place, like a Betty Ford Center, which is like $1,000 a day for like 90 days, just to get off over-the-counter Afrin. Do they sell Afrin down here?
Pseudoephedrine, basically.
Yeah, and when he got out, he drove straight to the 7-Eleven, Circle K, convenience store, and bought more. He just cannot get off it, and he doesn't know if it's because when he went in and got off it, he couldn't breathe.
Yeah. There's a rebound effect when you come off it, definitely.
But he stayed in there for I think 120 days to get off Afrin.
Yeah, right. Well, that's probably the most extreme case I've heard of. But
and he's a dentist, and he doesn't abuse cigarettes, alcohol, drugs. I mean, he's not a drug addict, but he treated it as an addiction.
But if you can't breathe through your nose, you become a very uncomfortable and unhealthy person. So in a perfect world, everyone breathes through their nose. The data we've got shows that 83% of patients report nasal congestion, and 52% of them will report it at a grade of 5 out of 10 or higher. So it's a serious problem. Out of the nasal resistance research we've done, greater than 60% of patients have moderate to severe nasal obstruction in the sleep apnea population. So the only other solution is surgery, which is only about 22 to 23% successful.
But that's only for bony.
Bony, and that's the issue. The clear indication is bony obstruction. Hypertrophic tissue can be cauterized and that sort of stuff, and you can treat allergies. But the other option is a nasal decongestant, so the pseudoephedrine. So for me, I'd gone through all that, and I just couldn't get air through my nose. So couple of saliva ejector tubes, and away I went.
Wow, this is a very interesting. So what do you call this?
This is the O2 Vent W, standing for wings, so it's a dorsal style appliance.
Say that again.
It's the O2 Vent W. This one's just been
And
released in the US,
and what's the
actually,
W for?
for the wings.
The wings. Well, show it to the camera. Show my homies on the camera.
Well, there you go. So this is the O2 Vent W, basically a dorsal oral appliance. For anyone who's in dental sleep medicine, they'll understand that. And so included in that, but well, these wings for a start are 3D printed in titanium, so the same technology they built the aircraft.
The
wings
metal
out
part
of.
was 3D printed
3D
too?
printed, yeah, with an electron beam printer. These are all custom designed. We've got our own proprietary software. And so then we've got an advancement mechanism here similar to any dorsal device, but included in it's this airway. So it's this airway opening there through the lips, around the tongue, below the nose and soft palate, straight into the back of the throat.
Now, is that yours?
No, this one's a demo. Mine's at home. I slept
demo.
with it last night and I'll have it in again tonight. So, really what we've found here is that, well, there's a couple of things. If you're looking at oral appliance therapy for apnea, only about 20% of the obstructions happen at the tongue base. So if you're just bringing the tongue forward, you've got limited chances of curing the collapses, particularly if they're in the soft palate or if you've got high levels of nasal congestion. So this is like a pressure inlet valve. So the last clinical study we did, we compared it to CPAP. So instead of having the mask with the pump, pumping the air in, just letting it get in through this airway, neutralise the pressures to the same extent.
So the CPAP was invented right here in Melbourne.
Yep.
By Colin O'Sullivan.
Yep.
And what percent of the people, what percent of obstructive sleep apnea is treated with CPAP successfully and everyone's all happy, and what percent
That's a good question.
is not?
So if you go to the American Sleep Association site, they'll say there's 22 million Americans with sleep apnea and 4 million are in treatment.
That's the entire population of Australia.
It is, correct, yeah.
Yeah, 22 million. Isn't that your population here?
20, getting on 25, but yeah.
So basically the entire population of Australia and America has sleep
apnea. Absolutely, yeah. And so if you look at the compliance and adherence rate, so we know CPAP works. It's very effective. The problem is if 100 patients get a sleep test and are diagnosed with sleep apnea, 50 of them will trial CPAP and 25 actually go on to buy one. Out of the 25 that buy one, at the end of year one, 50% of them don't use it. And at the end of year two, it's as high as 85%. So there's this churn of patients coming into CPAP care and out of CPAP care.
And what do you attribute that? Is it the noise? Do you have to sleep on your back? I mean, can you sleep, like I sleep on my stomach.
Yep.
And can you sleep with CPAP on your stomach?
No, physically impossible. So basically it's the pump, it's the mask, it's the pressure, the noise, the leaks. And you're right, you've got to sleep on your back.
And it's dead sexy.
Oh, it's a good look.
Dead sexy.
It's a great look, yeah. It's a fantastic contraceptive.
I think it's natural. It's a form of birth control.
That's right, yeah. So look, non-compliance, non-adherence is huge. In fact, the conference I just came from, the Monash Lung and Sleep Research Institute, they just were going through the SAVE study, which showed that a long-term prospective longitudinal study has shown that there was no positive effect of CPAP therapy. With the average wearing time was 3.5 hours a night, and it had no positive long-term health effects. Now, that was a big, long, expensive study, and that shows that while we know CPAP works breath by breath, patients aren't wearing it. And so with this device here, I mean, so on average, CPAP's going to reduce the severity of disease by about 83%. Our last study on this one reduced it by 78%. But patients were wearing this 6.1 hours a night compared to 3.5 hours a night on CPAP.
Because these would snap in.
Yeah, they just pop in, same as any.
Do they fall out very easily?
No, well, it depends how tight you make them, obviously, but we make them so that they don't fall out.
Could you wear that sleeping on your stomach?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I sort of sleep on my stomach with the head slightly to the side or on my side, and I toss around on my back as well. So you can sleep in any position. Now, we think that with the data we've got, 80% of sleep apneic patients will be effectively treated with this device. And we've shown on a study where I can't talk too much about the details of the result because it's about to go to peer review, but including this airway in the advancement device significantly increased the efficacy of the oral appliance therapy. Now, if there is a patient that for some reason doesn't get a result, so someone with a BMI, say as high as 40, 41, 42, severe sleep apnea, those patients may still need CPAP. So the last study we did, instead of having the mask, we attached the CPAP here, and we basically reduced the pressure requirements by 2/3, which is the first issue with CPAP therapy, and we did it without a mask. And the patients could roll around because the interface was connected to the cranial floor. So This device just FDA cleared last month. The CPAP connection we're looking to have FDA cleared in the next 12 months. What that means is that every patient can be treated effectively without the mask, and probably 80% of them without any CPAP at all.
Now, they also talk about other things, sleep hygiene. Is that just like a rounding error? Like they talk about not having a television on when you go to sleep, or music, or sleeping next to your smartphone dinging and things like that. They talk about how they like the room colder. Do those have much of an effect on obstructive sleep apnea, or is that for people that don't have a disease and just better sleep in general?
Yeah, so I think that's translates to poor sleep. Sleep apnea itself is stopping breathing while you're asleep, and obstructive sleep apnea is when the airway collapses. The central sleep apnea is a different mechanism. So if you've got good sleep hygiene, you're better rested, you're going to function better. I don't think that the sleep hygiene directly improves the sleep apnea, but treating the sleep apnea improves the sleep quality. So the converse is probably true, that if you can treat the sleep, but what is definitely true, you're going to get a better quality of sleep if you're not obstructing all night.
And do you think so just better sleep hygiene? Do you think caffeine is a huge problem in sleep?
No, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't know about, I imagine the US is addicted to caffeine after the Boston Tea Party and drinking coffee all day. But
yeah, it's funny that America went to a revolution with Britain because they put a tax on our tea, and Americans don't even drink tea.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of a highly strung population
of people. That's a war on principle. But look, I think caffeine's a big issue. I know I'd have 2 or 3 coffees a day. I don't know many people that don't have regular coffees. So you've got a stimulant there all day. There's obviously layover effects of that through the night. It might take you longer to get to sleep, then you wake up tired, so you have more coffee the next day.
Because it seems like whenever you go out to dinner, it seems like half the group after the end of dinner for dessert gets a coffee. And, and I'm always wondering, it's 9 o'clock at night, it's 10 o'clock at night.
Absolutely.
You're drinking a coffee right before you go to bed.
And you're going to be throwing a stimulant right in there when you're meant to be going to sleep and toning down. I think also there's some good evidence coming out now to show that screen play is an issue, particularly for juveniles and young people. They're not sleeping because they're always gaming or on their iPhone or on their iPad or whatever. Some of the research coming out, particularly in workers, we call them FIFO workers here, where they fly in and out of a mine, shift work, huge issues in terms of sleep hygiene as well. So
a lot of mining in Australia, isn't there? What are it's a very big extraction economy.
We're just a big quarry. So everything: coal, iron ore, bauxite for you'd call it alumina. We call it aluminium, copper, lead, zinc, aluminium. Aluminium, as you call it, alumina, I think, or aluminum.
We call it aluminum, and you call it aluminium.
Aluminium. Yeah.
I just love the way you say composite instead of composite.
Yep, composite.
And you say barbiturate or barbiturate?
Barbiturate.
Barbiturate. How do you say hygienist or hygienist?
Hygienist.
What?
Hygienist.
Hygienist.
Yeah. So we're still very much of the English extraction. So. We mine everything. Lead, copper, nickel, zinc.
Mostly
lithium.
to China. Export to China mostly?
Yeah, I think they've taken over now as the biggest export partner, but we still export a lot to Europe, China, Japan, the US, Indonesia, so most of Southeast Asia. So we're very close. I mean, you can get in a tinny and go from Australia to New Guinea, or sometimes you could even get across to Timor.
So do you know Australia, China, and the United States are all the same size geography?
Very similar.
3.6 million square miles.
Yeah, very similar. But we've only got 24 million people, 25 million people. So
now you had 25 million people. The United States has 325 million people, and China has 1,325,000,000 people. The density.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. So what do my homies find? Your website is Oventus, OVENTUS.com.au.
Yep.
What will they find if they go to oventus.com.au?
There's an American site as well, which I think is oventusmedical.com, but similar content. So they're going to get some information on sleep apnea in general. They're going to get some information on the different types of therapies. They're going to get some information on oral appliance therapy, and in particular, obviously, they're going to get some information on our device range, and also some of the research that we've done, some of the findings of that research, and then for patients, they can register. We can actually refer them to a dentist. For a dentist, they can register their interest and learn how to deliver the technology. and how to manage the patient using our technology.
So how does this get implemented into a dental office? I mean, what do they do? You educate them? Do you do it online? Do you have to go to a lecture?
So in the Australian market, we marketed the product and the training direct to dentists. We're a fairly small company with a small team, so we can't do that globally. We've actually just partnered with Modern Dental. In the US, they're Modern and Micro Dental, I think.
Modern Dental, the lab
laboratory,
in China with what's his name? Ryan with a G, my friend.
Godfrey, yeah. So Godfrey's the CEO. Yeah.
Oh, I love Godfrey.
He's a great guy. Yeah.
So you know where his name comes from, Godfrey?
No.
So I asked him. I said, so he owns. Is that the largest lab in the world?
By far, they're
How many employees are they at now?
Oh, I think they've got around 4,000 technicians.
Yeah, it'd be tough to see if it was Glidewell in the United States, which makes 5% of all the crowns in the United States, are Modern Dental. But you think it's Modern's bigger than Glidewell?
Well, I think so. They're number 1, 2, or 3 in every major company. In countries. So they're in Europe, US, Canada, China, as well as the rest of Asia, Australia, and New Zealand.
So he had me come down to speak in Hong Kong and Shenzhen at Modern.
Yep.
And I said, so Godfrey, I said, is that your first name, last name, whatever? He just chuckled. He goes, "You Americans," and he goes, when we're little, he goes, they tell us that Western people like you will never be able to say our name. So when I was first grade, everybody in the class lined up, and they went to a hat and they pulled out a name, and that was your Western name, and I pulled it out. Mine's Godfrey. So I just, I see anybody who's Western, I say Godfrey. I said, well, I want to learn your real Chinese name. What is your name? And he's like, oh, yeah. And it's like, okay, Godfrey. You're right. Great strategy. I couldn't have, and I tried. I mean, I had him tell me his name like 5 or 6
Chinese
times.
Chinese is very difficult. And the inflection up or down, it's tough, yeah.
So you're working with Godfrey at Modern. So what are you doing?
Well, we've signed a global distribution agreement, which is actually exclusive in the US, non-exclusive in the rest of the world. It launches, we're aiming for October 1. So at the moment, I'm working very closely with their sales, marketing and training teams, getting the educational and marketing materials from up here on our business into their business so they can start to train their own people. We are starting to work with Tufts University, Paulo Coria and Nishia Mita in terms of the training, the independent training. So,
are you going to do it online?
Yeah, so I think Modern and Micro have a fairly sophisticated online setup in Chicago. So I'm heading there first 2 weeks of September, and we're going to be doing a fair bit of filming. And
Modern Dental, and who else did you say?
Micro Dental. So Modern bought Micro in the US.
And Micro Dental, where were they at? Was that San Fran?
Oh, I think they've got about 34 labs around the US.
Micro
Dental, yeah.
Huh, when did they buy Micro Dental?
November last year it settled.
Well, when I was at Modern Dental, the UPS truck came several times a day.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
And when I looked in that lab box, what was amazing is they weren't from individual dentists. It was from every lab I had heard of in the United States.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at them, and a lot of them were from Arizona. And I was taking cell phone pictures of the names and the address and the UPS truck. When I got back, I sent it to them, and they said the same. Everybody pretty much said the same thing. They go, well, imagine if the dental schools all shut down the hygiene schools. You wouldn't have any hygienists. Well, it was dentistry's best idea to close down all the dental lab schools. And they said, okay, so here I have a dental lab, and I've had an ad in the newspaper, which cost me $100 a week for a porcelain stacker, a model trimmer, whatever. And I can leave that ad in there for a year. And I was talking to one lab, a really big lab in Iowa, and he says the dental schools aren't training any of the workers, and eventually you just give up and you have to send them to China. But they say, it's a big secret because it's very bizarre how America, World War II was against Germany and Japan. Yet nobody in America has a problem buying a Mercedes-Benz or a Sony television. Yeah. But for whatever reason, the American dentists who all drive Mercedes and Lexus and Sony TVs, some of them backlash against Chinese labs. Yep. So it's kind of under the weather. But you hear many different statistics. But some people think as many as 1 in 3 crowns in the United States are made in China, probably at Godfrey's lab.
I mean, there's quite a few.
Do you believe that?
Well, whether they're all at Godfrey's, I think the number might be higher than that, but there's quite a few OEM labs in China doing lab work for labs offshore.
And what percent of the crowns in Australia you think are made in China?
Oh, it'd be similar numbers to the US, I think. I mean, we're very close to Asia, so logistically it's easy. The outsource started here probably around maybe 10 years ago, 2006, 2007.
I know dentists in Poland.
Yep.
Who quit doing dentistry and started, the Crown and Bridge labs in China, in Germany are very expensive, like maybe $200 US for a crown, and going around picking up Crown and Bridge cases in Germany and sending them to Modern Dental, and they're just a middleman. They just pick them up, they ship them to Modern ships back, and they deliver them. And I know dentists in Poland that said, I'm making 2 or 3 times the money as a dentist in Warsaw.
Yep.
Just
cheaper lab work.
kind of an arbitrage play.
Yeah. And if you look at this one, for us, there was a huge advantage for us to work with Modern just because of their distribution network. So we actually print these here in Melbourne. So this is
so it's printer. So it's not CAD CAM. It's printing.
Well, it is. But it's not milling. It's additive. So for instance, a dentist, a customer of Modern or Micro in the US decides they want to buy one of these, they'll send the impressions in, they'll scan them, upload them to us.
So you prefer scan over impression?
Anything, it doesn't matter. We can take impressions, models, scans, whatever the workflow is.
And where will they be? What do you call it? Additive?
Additive, yeah. So 3D printing. So
3D printing?
Yeah.
And where will they be printed at?
In Melbourne here. We've got a campus at the CSIRO in Clayton, and so the data gets uploaded to the cloud. We download it. We've got our own proprietary software, so we design the device customized for each patient. It goes to the printer and comes with the printer, and we ship it back to them, and they deliver it to the dentist.
Wow. And how's sales and distribution going?
Well, we've only just launched. We actually haven't launched. We piloted some sales in the US from about February, just working with about 30 key opinion leaders and early adopters just to test the market. And we've gone back actually and refined some of the products for the US
market. And where are
these
30 key opinion leaders at?
So we had Paulo and Ashir at Tufts. I'm sure these guys won't mind me mentioning them. Nancy Addy out of Kansas was an early adopter with us. We had...
well, you should get them to all post on this
I will, yeah.
thread.
And who... we had Michael Sadifi in San Francisco, Amanda Cheng. We've got the Delaware Sleep Group. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I'm going to offend someone by not mentioning them. But certainly, we can post it to all of our dentists working with us in the US.
Do you give out your email address?
It's Chris, CHRIS, at Oventus, OVENTUS.
OVENTUS.
.com.au.
Chris at Oventus.com.au.
Yep.
.au. Yeah, I wish you would get all those people to post on that thread. I think that'd be the best marketing in the world. They're already talking about it.
Yeah, right.
So I posted your YouTube videos.
Excellent.
And all that. You've seen that.
Photoshopped, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, we can get them involved in that, definitely. And we're getting really nice feedback. It's a challenge logistically from Australia with customs, and we don't have a presence over there. We do have one employee, Steve Wick, who's the VP for North America. He's working hard with the early adopters, but we're really looking forward to October 1 when we've got some infrastructure there. So I'm working with an existing.
And who's
network.
His name is Steve Wick?
Steve Wick.
And is he a dentist?
No, but he's been working... I think he worked with SomnoMed for several years, and before that he worked in lab supplies, so Emperor, CMAX, bringing those sort of technologies out.
Yeah. Where is he located out of?
He's in Seattle.
Right on.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm meeting him over there in September again, so I think we're visiting quite a few research institutions and universities. And
so talk about how this gets adopted into a dental office. Do they need to... do you recommend... sending them to an overnight place for a sleep study, take home equipment? So
in terms of implementing in the dental office, if the dentist has already working in dental sleep medicine, they'll know the workflow obviously. If they're not, I'd probably really encourage them to do some training. I know that the Tufts guys run a great mini residency. I know University of North Carolina do as well. There's there's a load of training. The AADSM, the American Academy of Dental Sleep Medicine, run great courses. I mean, if you're in Australia, we've got about 2 to choose from, but in the US, there's a whole bunch of places that run great courses. So they should do some training. I always say you've got to be doing it as you're training, so find some patients within your practice, and you can screen all your patients as you should in the hygiene chair or through your medical history update. And dental signs and symptoms, erosion, bruxing, fractures, hypertrophic tonsils, or long soft palates, long inflamed uvulas, all these signs and symptoms that you're going to pick up when you do your examination. You're going to start to see it come to the surface. And, there's some fairly large correlation between sleep apnea and nocturnal bruxing, as well as gastroesophageal reflux disease. So, sleep apnea can lead to failing dentistry. So as a dentist, it's in your interest to screen your patients and treat that as you're doing the dentistry to make sure it sticks for.
But you said at Modern you're making a lot of online.
We will be, yep. So we started that.
Because you might, if you have the content, Dentaltown has 250,000 dentists on the website, and then when Jobs came out with a smartphone, we came out with the app, and 50,000 of the 250,000 dentists downloaded the app, and those all tended to be the millennials.
Yep.
The old guys like me and you are on the desktop, read textbooks. But we started the online section in 2004, but we put up about 400 courses, and they're coming up on 1 million views.
Wow.
So if you have the online, so let's see, categories. So let's see, do we have sleep medicine? So sleep medicine only has one course. This is kind of interesting. So I got out of school 30 years ago, and they didn't say one thing about sleep apnea in dental school.
It's pretty new.
When did it really go viral?
Look, I started getting into it mainly because trying to do aesthetic dentistry and that sort of stuff, and trying to protect the teeth from further damage, So for me, it was a way of not having the dentistry fail. And I think anyone who goes down that restorative pathway, starts looking at craniofacial pain, ends up doing sleep inevitably, because there's such a big correlation between the two. And I guess, I don't know, it really started in Australia. It's still fairly new. I think it's fairly nascent in its development. But I would imagine the US, from the material I was seeing come out of the US, I think it was around about 2007, 2008 from my experience.
2007, 2008. So what? I can't remember what happened in 2007. How did it go viral?
That I can't tell you. I can tell you from me. You're treating patients, and you don't have an answer, so you keep looking for an answer for them, and then eventually this is part of that answer for the patient. So
was it in the in the press? I mean, did someone famous? I mean, because now, like when the Supreme Court justice died, and they blamed on that, and just recently another movie star.
Sleep apnea.
Was it Princess Leia?
Carrie Fisher, yeah.
Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
They blamed that on sleep apnea too, right?
Yeah, they did. We were talking about that today at the conference, and it's a bit of a stretch, but.
Is it a bit of a stretch? Why is that?
Well, it's the comorbidities that come with sleep apnea,
It's what?
The comorbidities, so the hypertension, the stroke risk, the diabetes, the obesity, and the depression, it's these types of things. Then you get multiple medications, and everything sort of falls apart from there. Sleep apnea is managing one part of that whole complex of healthcare issues and one part of a whole treatment sort of sequence. So it's a bit of an overreach, but certainly it's a contributing factor. I think sleep apnea has gained awareness. ResMed's done an amazing job globally, so they built the market.
Who did?
ResMed. So Colin O'Sullivan invented CPAP. Peter Farrell founded ResMed, commercialised it, and basically turned it. I think it's an $8 billion company now. ResMed, yeah.
ResMed.
Yeah.
And where's that listed?
They're dual listed, the NASDAQ and in Australia as well.
Australia's the FTSE?
No, Australia's the ASX 200 or 100. So what's FTSE? UK.
UK's FTSE, and it's the ASX.
ASX.
Say it again.
ASX, Australian Stock Exchange.
ASX.
Yeah.
Australian Stock Exchange.
Yeah. So they're dual listed US.
So do you think when did ResMed go public?
That was in the 80s, I think, or when did they go public? It might have been the 90s, but I can't remember their exact
But it
history.
really just exploded in the last 10 years.
They were driving it, and I think they found links in research to all of these other factors like depression and blood pressure and diabetes and obesity. And then fatigue became a risk for transport workers, and sleep disorders became more apparent and more prevalent. So it was just, I guess they reached a tipping point where, the sleep physicians and the respiratory physicians, the nose and throat surgeons were treating all these patients with airway issues. And then there was all of a sudden this solution that was a medical device, which was CPAP. And there's money in that. So Peter Farrell's a very clever guy. He built a whole industry on the back of Colin O'Sullivan's invention. And so then they were obviously pushing these devices out. They got reimbursement for it. So once it's reimbursed and people want to be treated,
Yeah, people don't understand. They don't realize that the X-ray machine was out for a long time, but the first dental insurance was the Longshoremen's Club. It was a big union in America. And so basically every ship container that came in or out of America, whether it was from New York, Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, LA, they were part of the Longshoremen's Club, and they started dental insurance. I think it was in 48. And they covered, decided they were going to cover x-rays at 100%. Boom.
Yeah, everyone took
x-rays. I think it was within 2 years, every dental office bought an x-ray machine.
Yep.
So when you historically look at it, the healthcare follows reimbursement.
Yep.
And so if you're all, money is the answer. What's the question? In so many things.
Yep.
And but it's neat in Australia because here we are in Australia, where you invented this CPAP machine. You invented Oventus.
Yep.
Australians also were the ones that discovered that the ulcer was Americans were cutting them out.
Yep.
And the Australians figured out it was H. pylori bacteria and started treating it with antibiotics. And now they have another new one, which no one really wants to talk about it because it sounds kind of gross. But what is the number one transplant in the world now?
Yeah, you were telling me before.
Fecal matter transplant. It was invented down here. But basically what they were finding is you treat somebody with cancer, all this chemotherapeutic agent, and they're just all like sick and down. And this lady, physician, was down here, and she saw some little kid, and he had been treated for leukemia and all that, and he was just lifeless. And every time he pooped, he would cry because his anus was all raw and this and that. And she looked at it and she says, well, all of his gut microbiome has been probably killed. So she had his mother defecate in a container and gave him a fecal matter transplant, and he just sprung back to life. And she published that, and of course, imagine how many jokes came out of that one. But now it's actually the number one transplant in the world is actually a fecal matter transplant down here, because gut. So when I'm looking at you, only 1 trillion cells came from your mom and dad. But inside of you, from your gut, your 30-foot tube, is 10 trillion microorganisms, fungi, viruses, bacteria, parasites, and they're just finding out every day
what they do.
And it leads to, and they're linking. I mean, talk about the oral systemic link. They're linking that to everything from brain health, and it has to affect the mouth because you see the gut microbiome. I mean, this could be around the corner because you see people with a bunch of cavities, streptococcus mutans, don't really have perio. And you look at the people with massive perio, well, they don't really have cavities. And that's tied
to the oral flora,
to the whole gut microbiome. And it would not surprise me in 30 years from now with someone with a very high decay rate, they may be getting a fecal matter transplant with somebody who has a low decay rate. And it changes the whole gut microbiome, and
maybe it could be a salivary transplant. Might be a bit more. Just start
swapping
body fluids.
And it's also very weird because AIDS made everyone realize that you can transmit STDs, but now with HPV oral cancer, people are realizing that that without having sex, kissing a kiss. Transmits 80 million microorganisms on a standard kiss.
Yep.
And it's probably even more dangerous with me because I sleep with 3 cats. And I think, Ryan, is that a healthier alternative? Are cats healthier than humans? That's why.
Well, they're cleaning themselves all the time. So.
but yeah. So what is your what do you think the future of this is?
Oh, look, in terms of, there's 2 futures. One's the commercial future, and the other one, I guess, is the healthcare benefit. So if you look at the healthcare benefit, 80% of patients with sleep apnea are outside of care. Are outside of care.
Or outside
of care. Main reason because they
what
can't.
What do you mean outside of
They're not
care?
in treatment. So
Okay.
they've got sleep apnea. They either don't know it or they know it and they're not in treatment because it's not palatable. So this was invented. I was one of those patients, so I invented it for me to feel better. So if you think about that, there's 16 million, 15 million Americans, for instance, who are outside of care. And the data on this has shown that it's very similar. So potentially we can bring a lot more patients into care. And the downstream costs of not managing sleep apnea now is potentially huge. So you've got long-term healthcare benefit for patients and long-term cost savings to the economy. In terms of commercially for us as a business, it's a huge opportunity. The current market for sleep apnea globally is $3.2 billion US. It's growing at around about 15 to 20% compound annual growth rate, particularly in line. I mean, they've called it an epidemic. It's in line with the obesity epidemic as well. So 4 times that again is the addressable market today. So you're talking $13 billion a year. And if you look at the reasons patients aren't in care, it's mask-related issues, pressure-related issues, nasal congestion, and lack of efficacy or lack of adherence. So when we look at this technology, we've dealt with 3 levels of obstruction instead of 1, just by bringing the jaw forward. We can do that, but we can also bypass the nose and soft palate. We're increasing the efficacy of oral appliance therapy. We're able to use it as a CPAP interface without a mask and at low pressure. And actually, we've just received a $3 million government grant to build a micro PAP, which will be wearable. So we don't need a micro CPAP, which is wearable, it'll sit on the sleeve.
And you're going to do that, so you're going to get in the CPAP business.
Correct, yep. So we've developed the connection. I've got one in my bag over there I can show you if you like. And we've tested that in the clinical trials. And then on the back of that data, we found the pressure requirements were so low, the pump size could be reduced to the size of a cigarette packet.
Now you're going to tell what was O'Sullivan's first name?
Colin O'Sullivan.
Are you going to tell him about this?
Well, you may or may not already know about it, but that's so instead of having the mask, we can attach CPAP that way. This was just a prototype which we tested in the trial. It's now just a couple of buttons that sit.
So it'll be attached to this.
Correct. Yeah, that just goes on the front there. So instead of having a strap around your head, and we've actually embedded chips in this as well in testing at the moment that will tell us, are they wearing the device and is it working for them, or through the smartphone, so you can manage the patient on your iPhone.
Nice.
So this will be in the market in 6 to 12 months in the US, and this is a trial device patients can try as well. So there's a lot of technology coming.
So now, how long have you been using this on your patients?
Since 2012. So
and so that's 4 years.
Yep.
And what has the feedback been in your patients?
Really good. So I would have delivered maybe 1,200 of these devices over that time.
1,200?
Yep. And
so did you just you sold your dental office to private equity?
Yep.
Corporate dentistry. So you open up just one location?
Well, what
just
happened?
Only doing sleep apnea?
The first device we invented, we made out of plastic. It was very chunky. It had a very small airway. It was expensive to make, and it wasn't commercial. I was about to spend another $100,000 or something on patents. And I said to the patent attorney, no, forget about it. It's not really commercial. I'm out. And he said, well, talk to this guy about commercialising it. And that was the current CEO, Neil Anderson. And he told me what it had cost me to commercialise. I think it was $3 million or something. I said, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm out. Forget about it. Eventually, we cut a deal. And he said, look, I'll do it for nothing, but I want a percentage of the company, and you've got to put some money in. So I did that. And he said, I think we can print these in titanium. The problem with the plastic was it was too bulky and it was handmade, so too expensive to make. Once we started printing in titanium, we can use all the available real estate because it's so strong in thin section. These walls are only 300 microns thick, but you can drive over these in a steamroller. So we could then take use of this space between the teeth as well as the space here. And what that meant was the cross-sectional area of this airway went from 8 square millimetres to 50. And 50 square millimetres is the same cross-sectional area as a healthy nose. So now we can put a nose between the teeth, a second nose, increase double the airflow. And then we thought, well, we're going to have to be able to make these things in serial order. So we started developing software to design them. And so now we can do about 10,000 of these a year. We print 60 at a time, all custom made for each patient. So
60 at a time. So the titanium's additive.
Yep.
So 60. So the disc is about the size of this table.
It's a vat. Yeah, it's probably twice the size of that, maybe that big. And what happens is an electron, it's a powder bed, and the electron beam zips around, micro-welding all the 50-micron titanium dioxide particles together, and it builds it up in layers. So it's pretty cool.
Man, that'd be cool. Yeah.
So anyway, we got regulatory approval. We did that project from the chunk of plastic to the first device, which looks like this, in 11 months, and we got regulatory approval to sell them in Australia. So I said to Neil,
This was your first one?
Yep. It's just a mono block. You bite into it, very simple. So I said, I'll start selling them. So I did. And I did an interview on the news, and we had 5,500 patients register online in a week. And I went, I better do something about that. So I rang a few of my mates all around Australia, and I said, look, I've got all these patients. I'm going to send them to you. They want one of my devices. I'll teach you how to do it. So we did that, and we managed to sell around, I think, 2,000 or something. And then at that point, I'd put about $1 million into the business. We started making money, actually. And then I just sold a clinical business. So I said to the CEO, I've got all these clinics now. I didn't want any more clinics. I just sold the bloody clinics. So I gave those to the dentist, and then we split the business, the clinical business out, and we kept the manufacturing business. And then we raised private equity, not private equity, yeah, I guess it was, but individual high net worth investors. We did a private round, and then we listed this on the ASX last year. And then we've just done another raising now. So we've raised about $24 million into this company. And so now with this distribution agreement with Modern, we've got our manufacturing set up. We think that in the next year or two we'll end up making a bit of money. So
that's a huge amount of money you raised.
Yeah. Well, you need it to
$24 million.
scale up for global supply, and we've got a lot of clinical research.
So how many offices did you sell when you sold to corporate?
So by the time I started selling them, I had 15, or 12 I owned, 3 I managed. I started selling them over a period of time. By the time private equity came along, I think there were only about 7 or 8 left. So I sold them those ones with the training institute and the management consultancy. So as I sold the other practices, the dentists I sold them to wanted me to continue managing them for them. So I had a management contract across quite a few, and then I scaled back to the core ones that were easier to run and made the most money. So then the private equity bought those ones off me.
So what lessons could dentists learn from how's corporate dentistry doing in Australia? What percent of the market is it?
Gee, that's a good question. It'd be around maybe 12%, I think.
And that's what they say the United States is. Is that what you're hearing in the States?
Yeah, well, it was 5% when I started looking to exit, and they've expanded quite quickly from there. I think it was at 8 to 10%.
5% in Australia or US?
In Australia.
5% now it's 12%.
Yeah, the beginning one, because it was 8 to 10 2 or 3 years ago, and they were growing at that rate, so I've had to estimate it to be about 12%. It's a bit of a different framework in Australia. We don't. Well, it's actually starting to head in the same direction. So we call it the Americanisation of the Australian healthcare system, where insurance companies are muscling in and dictating terms, and there's managed care coming in and this sort of stuff. So I actually sold out when I saw that coming, because we had a pretty good run there for a while. We got to set our own fees. It got reimbursed as a percentage of that, not much, but it was okay. And then the corporates started in Australia. People like, I guess I can name them, 1300 Smiles and Pacific Smiles were signing up health fund contracts. And then,
are 300 Smiles and Pacific Smiles, are they publicly traded?
They are, yeah.
On the ASX?
Yes. Yep.
Are those the only 2 publicly traded?
Yes, at this point in time.
And are the owners of that out of Sydney or Melbourne?
Well, 1300 Smiles is Daryl Holmes, who I know well. He's out of Townsville, actually, up near where I grew up, North Queensland. So.
Is that near here or Sydney?
Well, north of Brisbane, so it'd be 1,000 kilometres north of Brisbane.
Do you think he'd come to Sydney and let me podcast him?
Daryl, absolutely. I think he'd definitely do that.
On this trip that I'm here?
Might be able to. Depends how busy he is. I've got 5 kids. I think he's got 6, so he's probably busier than me.
You've got 5 kids? He has 6?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I grew up with 7.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, I had 4. I wanted to have 7 kids.
Yeah, I was one of 5, and we ended up with 5.
So you only have really 2 corporate dental chains in Australia.
They're the 2 listed ones.
One 300 Smiles and Pacific Smiles. Now, in the United States, none of the corporate chains are publicly traded.
It's a very different fundraising landscape. So there's a couple of private ones. I sold my company. It became National Dental Care. I think they've got about 50-something. There's also Lumina out of New Zealand, own Maven Dental. I think they've got 50 or 60 as well. And there's 2 or 3 other private equity firms doing roll-ups. So it's sort of, we're 10, 20 years behind the US market.
None of the big corporate dental chains in America could do an IPO on NASDAQ.
No.
And you were talking about, what was the company you were saying that was on NASDAQ and ASX?
Well, that's ResMed. They're a medical device manufacturer.
Okay, so ResMed's on NASDAQ and ASX.
Yeah.
There's no big corporate dental chain that could do an IPO on Nasdaq. Why do you think 300 Smiles and Pacific Smiles Group could make an IPO on the ASX?
Well, it's about the funding environment. So if you look in the US, there's a lot of private equity, a lot of VC money.
Right.
There's a lot of high net worth.
Explain the difference between private equity and VC.
Well, I guess private equity will take a longer term view, and they'll generally they'll come in later as well. So VC will come into technology earlier at higher risk, but they'll usually got harsher terms in my experience, and they might take an early stage technology to the point that it's commercial or in sales. Private equity are more, so they'll bring technology through, and they'll probably got a higher risk profile. Private equity tend to do more consolidations, safer industries, but roll-ups, and they might do it with debt.
Explain what a roll-up is. A roll-up is goes out and buys 100 dental offices.
Correct.
As opposed to opening up from scratch 100 de novo practices.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So is 300 Smiles and Pacific Smiles groups more of a roll up, or are they opening up de novo?
So Pacific Smiles are more de novo, 1300 Smiles are more roll up, but they're both cash flow businesses, so they make good profits. Private equity will come in to a business and look to reduce costs, restructure, increase scale, and increase profitability that way, and then usually flip it. Maybe to an IPO or maybe to another private equity firm or a healthcare company or something like that. So what I think is really shaking up in Australia is Bupa, the world's biggest mutual society, have bought Australia's biggest dental corporate. So they own 220 practices and they're the payer.
In Australia?
Correct. Yeah.
And it's called what?
Dental Corp is the name of the company, but Bupa is the mutual society. It's insurance.
Dental Corp, C-O-R-P?
Yep. So once Bupa bought the practices...
What are you saying, Buco?
Bupa.
And what is there? Are they publicly traded in the FTSE? Or?
No, they're a privately owned mutual fund. Insurance fund. They're a health insurance fund.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So once they can lose money at the shop front and still be better off. So you can't compete with a loss maker. That's my view. So when I saw them do that, I just thought, right, well, I'm out, because I can't possibly compete with the health insurance company that now owns a sizable chunk of the market.
So Bupa is a dental insurance company, or is it a healthcare?
Health insurance, yeah. So they own hospitals.
And how many? So they bought 200 dental offices in just Australia.
Yep. So there was already a roll-up called Dental Corp, which was private equity backed and debt funded as well. And they'd sold to an Indian investor, and the Indian investor flipped it back to Bupa.
Amazing. Now, how many offices do they own in the UK?
I don't think they own many in the UK. I think they were just starting. When I last looked, it was a few years ago. I think they had 7 or something, but they were just starting to test the market.
So, what is your view of corporate dentistry now in Australia? Because you're saying the fees have come down.
Yep. Yeah. Well, look, younger dentists don't want to own a practice. Not all of them, but some.
Do you find that?
Yeah. Well, that's the trend, and that's what they were playing on. And look, we've had a shift from. We're probably 60-70% female dentists now who want to go and have a family and have children without being sexist. That's the reality of it. Yeah. And they're looking for part-time sort of contract work. Then you've got dentists who do want to work hard and own their own practice. But the minute that the health fund owns the clinic across the road, and they come and see me, and in the US it's the same. They might pay my patient $200 for the crown I'm charging them $2,000 for, but they'll get it for free across the road. So as good as you think you are as a clinician and the highest level of service you've got, it's very hard to compete with free. And as you said, the money rules the roost. The work goes where the money is. It's not the other way around. So that scenario is starting to gain momentum in Australia. I think there's still a lot of great operators that are doing well as independent dentists, and they'll continue to do so. But I think it's just going to keep going that way.
I see individual dentists doing great because when you own your own business and you have a mortgage, you have a home, you have a family, you have student loans, they just seem to work through lunch, stay at the end of the day. They hustle and they're hungry. Yep. But when you go to continuing education and you see and you look at the associate market. The associates during the courses tend to be on their Facebook, tend to not come back from after lunch. you talk to the assistants and you say, well, how's it going? And they go, well, half the time they get a toothache, they just write a referral to the endodontist. Whereas the owner would do the root canal. And it's like I wrote an article that ruffled more feathers than probably anyone I've written since 1994 called Suck It Up Buttercup. I was talking about endo on second molars. And my thesis was just do the damn second molar because you're not going to get good at it until you've done 100 of them.
Yep.
And in my experience, when you lose a second molar, no one cares. It's like a third molar.
Yep.
No one's ever cared.
Yep.
A second molar, I've only had one person for a decade say, I kind of miss that tooth back there. And, you just don't chew on a second molar. So I said, worst case scenario.
Yep.
You do the second molar and you're perfect, you mess it up, you got to pull it. The patient, they won't even care.
Well, it could be an opportunity.
And, of course, the endodontist, they got on their high mighty horse. Oh, you should send them all this. But the associates, they're like, well, I don't want to do a second molar.
Well, they just want to
this one might have another canal. They're just not hungry and they don't hustle. And then their turnover, they don't have skin in the game.
Yeah.
Do you see the turnover problem?
Yeah, so when I ran my business, we were trying to be corporate. I don't think we ever fully got there. But the key for us was training. So instead of paying the dentist, $200,000 a year on 40% commission, we pay them $100,000 a year but train them. So we got two things out of that. We got better quality dentistry out of the associates. They were more engaged. They did better work on the patients, which drove higher revenue. So what I found was...
So did you pay them a percent or a salary?
I paid them a salary.
You did not pay them a percent?
Not in the first year. In the second year, then they got a little bit of a kicker, and we built it up over time. But see, the training, it was a 2-year program they went on, and our relative labour cost dropped from 42% down to about 17-18%. Because these
17 to 19?
Yeah, 17 to 18%, depending on the year and
for labour costs for dentists.
Yep. So that was all profit. We spent a bit of that on training. We reinvested back in. So that was the model I used to make it profitable to have associates and to engage them. I also went to areas where there was less competition and higher income.
You went rural.
Yeah. Yep. So
you stayed out of Sydney and Melbourne, and Brisbane?
I never made a dime in the capital cities. It was all through. I practiced it right through the mining towns up to Darwin and all the way down to Melbourne, just in the interior.
Yeah, it's funny. In America, their parents migrated all the way from India, so their kids get a better life. And then you tell their kid, well, could you just kind of leave the big city and go just like 1 hour out of town? They're like, no. It's like, your mom came 8,000 miles. Can you just go 100 miles?
And it was so much easier.
So you didn't make a dime in the big city?
Well, I made a salary, I might have made 10% over my salary in the city. I worked in the city, but I...
Which city, Melbourne or...?
Brisbane.
Brisbane.
But I'd fly...
Which is Gold Coast?
Near the Gold Coast, yeah.
So is Gold Coast a city or a county?
It's a city, but it's on the beach east of Brisbane, yeah. So I basically would fly up the interior north, then south, and come back. So I was away 2 or 3 days a week. I did it for 13 years. We made great money. We sold it well, and then I started this one. But this area of dentistry, I think you asked what adoption to practice. This is an area of dentistry that dentists can do, that the health funds that you can get away from that managed care scenario, because it's a medical problem. It's value added. It's low capex. So when I do this work, I rent a room for $30 an hour. That's my overhead. I share a receptionist with someone. And I sell these for $2,500. It's about an hour's worth of work.
$2,500 for the oral appliance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever the government starts setting the fees, like in Tokyo, Paris, and London, you only get $100 for a molar root canal.
Yeah.
So when you go around the world, everybody's going into sleep apnea, Invisalign, and dental implants.
And implants. That's it.
Because no one sets the fee.
It's not going to be covered.
But back to your corporate dentistry, your answer to the employee turnover was training.
Training, yeah.
And set up a big curriculum. And
Correct.
I think the leader in the United States by far is Heartland Dental. And that's what Rick Workman does. When you get a job at Heartland, it's an extensive training.
I mean, it's a quality thing too. You can maintain quality. I also had a call centre, so because all of my practices were hundreds, if not thousands of kilometres apart, we took all the phone calls centrally, because my view was patient management was practice management. So I knew, and they were behind my desk. If there was an issue in Timbuktu, I'd know about it straight away. and we'd have usual things, your morning meetings, lunchtime checkup, afternoon meeting. And we used to run about 20 people in the call centre, and they had the tallies to make, and just scheduling and making sure you're above 85% capacity, and had put, all the stuff that you know about and you've taught over the years as well. So, but making that replicable and manageable across a broad front was how we sort of made it work.
Man, what a genius, what a pioneer. You've done so many things.
We've had some fun.
Amazing in dentistry. It was just an honor that you'd stop by our hotel room.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my gosh.
Thanks, Rob.
I was like, tell Godfrey I said hello.